Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Okay. What? Okay. Yeah. So we've heard about how you like to go to remote locations that most people won't go to. So the title of this photo is Chernobyl 2019.
Right.
In the photograph it's a very moody image in the sense that it's in a kind of a human space, like the outside or courtyard of, say, an industrial building. It's kind of dirty and grungy and cobbled. There's a lot of moss kind of growing. In the middle of the photograph, which is what makes the shot, is a sort of really boring wooden chair with this sort of beige upholstery. And on it is a sort of old styled, you can look at it, it's quite dated. It looks like a 1940s, 1930s a gas mask from the Cold War era. So, and we know it's in Chernobyl. Wow. What? Okay.
Yeah.
As a scientist, how smart of it was it? Well, wait. No, actually, I've heard there's a lot of wildlife that's sort of taken over Chernobyl.
Yep.
It's come back.
Yep.
Okay, so take it away, because I have more questions than you have maybe answers. But go ahead. What is this?
Well, as I said, with checking the countries on my map, I always wanted to see Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
And then I didn't even plan on going there. Like, this was like kind of like a short notice trip. Like, two friends with my wife and me in Germany said, hey, there's a long weekend coming up, you want to go somewhere? And then I have a hard time committing to someone else's travel plans, especially when it goes to a place I've already been.
Okay.
So I said, guys, what about Ukraine? Then my friend had to check, because he's in the military, there are certain countries he can't go. He said, Ukraine is fine, actually, if you've never been. Heard it's a very nice city, people are very nice. And then we went, I think on a Thursday night, we got there Friday, so we had Saturday, Sunday, and we would go back on Monday. And I said, hey, I'm going to just research what we can do, because that's what I always do. And I said, did you guys know that Chernobyl is like really close, right? This was not intentionally. And they said, Chernobyl, why would we go there? I'm like, okay, let me just do some more research. But I mean, if they offer tours and everything, I mean, it's Ukraine. You couldn't even say that means it's safe.
Yeah.
Right. But
if you can.
But then again, you have the people that are locals that guide the tours. And I mean, they would know, right? I mean, they wouldn't expose themselves to going into like the exclusion zones, what they call it. And they have, I actually forgot the word, the little devices that measure the radiation.
The Geiger counter.
The Geiger counter. And so that was more for like entertainment purposes. So they would say, okay, there are certain areas that have still a high, radiation. We will pass through them every once in a while. And then you would all hear the sound of the Geiger counter go up and whatever. And they just would point out there would be tiny hills. They said, these are not hills by nature. This is like where people collected all the nuclear waste, and they just, kind of like dig a hole and put it there, and then, over time they filled dirt on it. And that was in the actual area where the buildings were, the living houses, like not skyscrapers, but as you know from Israel, maybe, big buildings like blocks with, hundreds of people living there. All, of course, no one lives there anymore.
Right.
But there was a chair, and it was already like this, but it was way off the side. So it was back in this corner here or something. Sure. And you do not touch anything, right?
Right.
But I managed to, over like the time of 10 minutes, like slowly push it with my foot into that little path in the middle. Now that I look at it, I wish I had places back here. But yeah, too bad. But my main focus was probably that black background. And then once I had, my wife was like, what are you doing with that chair? And like, just hold on. I know how it's supposed to look like, right? So I was moving that chair, and then...
that is fucking great. Thomas, having so many layers of questions to ask you. Okay, let's start from the beginning. As a photographer, knowing that you're going to... So in your mind, you had this sense or this feeling of, this is how I want to compose this shot. And then you kind of edged it out and composed it. There's a bit of post-processing that you can sort of tell in terms of the
bit more blues.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's really arresting. And of course, what makes the shot is the sort of the gas mask thing, and the title that says Chernobyl. Now, we live in this crazy world, right? Where you moved to California, and we're kind of like exchanging. I really decided to move back to Canada last week. wasn't being impulsive. Some people might think it was impulsive. It was an impulsive action that took 5 months to take. Fine. So then, but I really just decided, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to book the ticket and left. And then we end up meeting, and then here we are, and it's like, I'm looking at this photograph. And what's insane is that I was trying to get people who are Ukrainian or connected to the Ukraine to kind of talk to me on the podcast. And I've had 2 people so far. And then I didn't know you were going to do this. And so what's your filter being German, having been to Ukraine relatively recently, and then in terms of what's going on now with the war? Like what's going in your head?
Well, it is a very, very tricky question because apparently, I mean, always you can say all we know is what we see in the media.
Right.
I mean, I know a bit of how the people, like a sense of how the people were. I found they were really friendly, but then again, those people were not politically motivated or leaders. Or leading in politics. So maybe different intentions. And then again, some people say, but maybe Ukrainians are not, completely innocent. I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't really care. But like, it was Russia that invaded. It doesn't matter. I mean, if I don't like my neighbor and my neighbor doesn't like me, it's okay, but I'm not going into his house and say the kitchen is mine now.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes me the asshole.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, right?
For sure.
And so it was a bit scary at times right before I left, because when it started, you really thought at the beginning, I mean, I grew up in a generation with no war, right? So you always think it happens somewhere else. Not right now, not to me. But then again, the whole NATO thing came up, like, you know that if they somehow get involved, any of the countries, then we will have a war.
Yeah.
Like, shit, I think that is a possibility.
Sure.
So it made me feel a bit on edge for a couple of days, and then for some reason it's still going on, right? Since what, like 8 weeks? I don't know.
Yeah, that's been
and it's kind of like briefly every once in a while it pops up somewhere, but like it's not, most things are not interesting for the media to show over such a long period of time.
Okay, so here's this shot from Chernobyl. There's the ticking of the Geiger counter in the background potentially. When we have memories, in the sense that we stack our memories we remember what we remembered previously, and then from there we remember previously. So there's always that kind of that chain. But at any point, I can say to you, okay, take a detour. But how about you take a minute and go back to those memories, and then just claw up that earth to see what other memory comes up to you about that day that maybe you haven't talked about or you haven't remembered in a long time that made an impression.
Well, there is one thing that made a really big impression, because you would, after the tour ends, you would go and eat at the actual cafeteria of the nuclear power plant that blew up, right?
Wow.
You would eat there, and it's the exact place where the people were eating the day it happened and everything.
Wow.
And I was really close to the girl leading the group, so I was talking more about stuff, and not only the exclusion zone, also like, so how did you get into this job and whatever? And they say, well, it's good money. A lot of people here don't have, well-paid jobs really, and that kind of stuff. And it felt weird because, as I said, it was not intentionally. So when we got back home, I said, I knew what happened by history and everything, but I said, I actually want to watch the HBO show now. Okay. Because like, they probably work a lot on the visuals and everything. And now you've been there, and then that was really weird. Like, it got weirder after I got home.
Right. Okay.
And the bus tour they do is they would show you the image videos they had, like, decades ago, to attract people to move there to have this perfect life and living.
Right.
Every time they had timed it in a way that as they would pass these buildings here, they would have exactly that part of the video showing, like, happy life, move your family. This is the
Isn't this great?
There in the playground, and then you see the playground, and it looks like this as you move by.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, this is really not.
And it's just kind of like how that messes with your head. Sure. And what language are you speaking with this?
English.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Because it's one of those things, like, when you're from an outsider and you look at it, it's just, you have to cross that barrier of it's so different and so new, right? And then, but once you're there long enough, it becomes super normalized. Have you lived, where in California did you move to?
Anaheim. South California.
How different is Anaheim from other places you've been to? Is it just nuts, or is it?
I don't know. I mean, Anaheim is pretty overrun because it's like has all these theme parks, right?
Oh.
Not only Disneyland, there's like a bunch of them. So
that's weird.
It looks like a tiny Las Vegas kind of, like that one street they have. It looks like tiny Las Vegas, right? Yeah. But it's obviously not.
I've heard Anaheim described as the Chernobyl of the United States. I'm just joking.
In terms of pollution, sometimes it looks like it.
Oh,
right?
really? Okay.
But it's like you can't really compare to the rest of South California, I think, because of all that overload of like entertainment.
Wow, that's crazy.
If you move up or down a bit, north or south, then it gets a bit more normal in a way that it's just normal crap.
Are you there for university or for your
no, I got a new job.
Okay.
A new job, at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Hollywood.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Right now, commuting a lot, like an hour and 45 to like 2 hours per way every day.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've had in Hong Kong, I had that kind of life. You realize that per week, if you work 5 days a week,
I did the math already.
Yeah, that's one full day in the car or whatever. Yeah,
but I mean, the thing is that my wife moved back to the States in August last year.
Oh, she's American.
She's American. She started her doctorate in psychology,
okay.
And so when I moved, I had to put down a permanent address as I enter the country, and it is the address that she would live at the time. So we get a new apartment on the 1st of June. Okay. So in a week, further up north, so my commuting will be.
Capiche. Very nice. Okay. Okay, you want to go to the next photo or what?
Let's do it.
Okay, fucking guy. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.